Hello everyone, and on today's episode of Hubris Syndrome, it's a very special one. Extremely special. We are joined by none other than Luke Arnold!
Hey, g'day. Good to be here.
Happy to have you, Luke. Also joined by Brad Ellis.
Howdy.
Third week in a row. This is basically, one of our 9 other podcasts at this point.
Yeah.
So today, Black Sails has come to an end after 4 glorious seasons, and we are going to discuss it in detail with none other than Long John Silver himself. So very excited about this. If you don't know what Black Sails is, it is a Treasure Island prequel. It is a pirate show. Way more than that brief description, though. And it was on Starz. And if you're worried about spoilers, there will be spoilers throughout. So if you haven't had the chance to watch it, maybe watch it before watching this. Other than that, though, we're going to dive right in. So, Luke, when I heard you were an Easy Allies patron, I was blown away. And then I heard you were like super familiar with game trailers. So before we get started, tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I've always been a gamer, and it was my little brother George who one time pointed out to me, said you should check out this guy Kyle Bossman, and I think you really dig his videos.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. So I started watching the Final Bossman, and then from there, kind of getting to know the whole GT crew, and being a fan of everything you guys were doing, and because I'm often on the road, it's kind of, I think, of being an actor, I'm always bouncing around. I don't always have a console with me, or then the time to anywhere to set it up. But I love always knowing what's going on in the gaming world. Yeah. So GT and then Easy Allies became my way of staying in touch with the gaming community when I didn't have the means to play games while I was traveling around living out of hotel rooms. And then I think it was at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, I bumped into Brandon. Like, we were both down there and just had some drinks in the afternoon. I was like, hey man, big fan. I think that was even while it was still GT time. And then I was shattered when game trailers ended. I couldn't believe it. I was down in Cape Town. I remember going, oh no. And was then really excited when Easy Allies was happening. And yeah, I was a patron from day one as soon as it was announced. And then I think at first I saw it was actually when then Sea of Thieves was announced. But I went, yeah. I went, and I
can we commit to a Sea of Thieves stream?
Absolutely.
Right here, right now, with you in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was my first pitch to Brad.
Only if Luke is the captain.
Of course. Of course.
But that was our first interaction. Then I reached out to Brad. I was like, "Hey man, what do you think Because I think when I followed you guys on Twitter and you followed back.
Yeah, I think it was after you met Jones.
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, dude! Because I watched the show then, I was like, no way. Then we started just chatting through that, I guess.
Yeah. And it was my first thing going, hey, should we do a Sea of Thieves stream at some point?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, just come on in.
Yeah.
And so I popped in for that first group stream. And now we're all buddies. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent.
These are very long answers. Is that...
That's
all right?
We have plenty of time.
Cool.
Settle in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Long John Silver, legendary character, Treasure Island. Were you familiar with the character prior to this? Like, how did you get involved with Black Sails?
So I'd known Treasure Island. I don't know the first time I would have experienced Treasure Island. It was probably Muppet Treasure Island. I've said this in a lot of interviews. For me, it was Tim Curry as Long John Silver might have been my first version of really understanding, going, okay, that's Long John Silver, and that's that. Just the great Treasure Island story. One of the first real kind of anti-heroes, kind of this, he's kind of a lovable villain. There's, you kind of love him and hate him as Jim does through the story. Keeps kind of being sucked into his charm and then going, actually, no, this guy's really deceitful. But it's just that real adventure story. And so it was, and then I'd read it a bunch of times before. I think I probably read it a couple of times. And then Black Sails came up. And it's one of those things as an actor that you hope, what do you think when you're a kid and you go, I want to be an actor, you're hoping you're going to do pirates and cowboys and all that of stuff, and then most of it isn't. You're like, it's, kitchen sink dramas, or you're you know, most first jobs as an actor, you're going into like a morgue on a cop show and, you know, crying about it. Yeah, you know, someone dead at the top.
husband.
Yeah, that's it. It's all that stuff, or, you know, or coming in as a, you know, a new boyfriend in a show for 2 episodes till, you know, something terrible happens. So when this came up, it was like, of course you want to be on the pirate show, you know, and yes, Michael Bay was attached, and yeah, it was this Treasure Island prequel, but it was just a pirate show. So I was actually in the running for another show at the time, which didn't end up happening. That was also going to happen at Stars. So I was kind of right on their radar. Then I went in and I originally auditioned for Charles Vane.
Whoa, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, I got the job. So they called up. I went and did my the audition and the final test for Vane. And I got a call saying, you're on the show. They picked up your contract. They don't know who you're going to be yet. If they find a Silver, you're Vane. If they find a Vane, you're Silver. So I was on the show for 6 weeks.
Oh.
I was going to be a pirate, but I didn't know who I was going to play yet. So that was kind of it. It was just mad. They were like, you're a pirate. You're on the show. They were still kind of piecing everything together. There were some producers who wanted me for one role, one for the other. But I think what it kind of meant by me being Silver was like, they saw me audition for kind of the badass pirate.
Yeah.
And were like, okay, we know he can do that, but if we bring him back to this other guy at the beginning who's very different, we can watch him evolve into the leader over a couple of seasons, which luckily we got to do. Yeah.
I don't know how many times Brad has come up to me and just gone, Charles Vane.
We love doing impressions of him. Yeah.
Everyone on the show does a Charles Vane impression. He does have a ridiculous voice.
Yeah.
He also, you probably recognize him if you watch like Discovery Channel and Nat Geo and stuff. He does a lot of like, you know, the monsters of the deep.
Well, I was bummed as soon as he left Black Sails, and I'm a avid Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. watcher.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like hyping up this like new intense villain. And all of a sudden he comes in the door and it's Charles Vane. I'm just like,
what? I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He's the superior.
The
superior.
Don't make me watch that show, man. I don't want to watch that.
I've got a few friends in that now. Apparently it's good and it's worth it. I actually haven't watched it yet, but I know his storyline is mental. So I've got
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And that was a thing too, that like, because, you know, Charles Vane was a real guy, and like so many of the characters in the show, open to interpretation, because we only know snippets of their life. But once Zach McGowan became Charles Vane, that is the only Charles Vane. Like what he did with that role is so
incredible.
Iconic. Yeah.
Incredible.
Like, we're going to be touching on that so much later, but just the scene where he gets hanged, you know?
Yep.
And it's, just the amount of emotion you feel for these characters that have still done bad things.
Like, no one's like a good person,
exactly.
you know? In these.
It's such a testament to just every character on that show.
Yeah, no, I think that, and that's the writers being really smart and just working really hard. Working in the grey area is much tougher than having outright good guys and bad guys and going, we want the audience to root for this person against this person. And I feel like every character in the show has a group of people who love them and hate them. People who are like, I see exactly where they're coming from. And people who are like, I want them to die right now.
So, I mean, elaborating on that more, it's not, you know, so many things are about good versus evil, and Black Sails is not really about that. Who would you say, or what is the moral compass? Who has that role in the show?
I think once again that depends who you ask, because once again I think by the time, often it's usually who's just about to die. I think
make us feel bad about it. You're like, all right.
Everyone comes in with a particular kind of worldview about how they think the world functions, how they should function, what morality is, what's right and wrong. And there's usually some conflict within them and conflict in the world around them. And at some point, characters will reach, something will happen, they'll change. Like, Vane was a very different guy at the beginning to who he was. You know, he was out for himself. He didn't see a point in working with anyone. And then this kind of freedom fighter, this martyr that he became by the end, absolutely that's when he has to die, because his character goes through this amazing arc to a point where he's someone completely different to who he began. And this duality that was in him at the beginning becomes one fused person, and you go, okay, arc's down, you're out the, you know, you've gone through your journey, now it's time for someone else. And I think every character in the show went through that journey of having some struggle within them that would be resolved over the course of the show, to a point where, just as it happened with so many characters, I've been going, I don't get them, they really frustrate me, and they go, they're my favorite character now, and sure enough, they're going to die in that episode. Because they've completed a journey where now they have a kind of strength of vision and
except Arnold. Get out of there.
Yeah.
Get out of there, Arnold.
Well, he went the other way, and that's it. That happened the other way too. Either as characters, they came together to a point where you're like, you're the hero we need, or there are other characters like Dufresne, Hornigold, Woods Rogers, who you begin going, they're very reasonable. I kind of like them. They're kind of working well in this immoral world, and then something changes them till by the end you're like, die. So there's a lot of death in the show, and you're either happy to see someone die or you're heartbroken.
That carriage scene with Charles Vane hunting down, oh my god, hunting down Woods Rogers, edge of my seat, because it's just so high stakes. There's so much going on there with, like, not only are they fighting for their lives, they're fighting for the future. Like, there's so much riding on it, and just the way that scene played out, I was like, I couldn't breathe, man.
One thing to the next. It's an amazing thing to do in television. Just to go, like, we're going to do a carriage scene. We're going to go from what's like a 10-minute two-hander of like Rackham talking about his backstory and facing off with Rogers, immediately into a whole troop of riders coming and taking out a carriage. And that was the kind of thing where we, that's in the script, and we go, hey, I think we can do this. And then they'd prep it and get ready to shoot it and go, no, it's not ready, it's not good enough yet. And delay it another couple of months, or, while they get everything ready. And because it was the great thing about, like, we'd shoot it episodically, like we'd spend 2 weeks on the first episode, then and then that would move on to second unit while we do 2 weeks on the second episode. But we didn't turn in everything till the end of the season. So we got to spend 6-7 months just working on...
Oh, wow.
So we in season 4, we didn't finish the first episode, like that opening sequence, until the last week of shooting.
Wow.
Because they can keep going back, going, nope, we need another shot here, we can make it better. And not much TV allows for that. Like, a lot of TV...
That's true.
One show's airing while you're shooting the next episode.
Yeah.
It's how we got to tell a complete story, I think.
Brad, if you have any questions,
I was going to say, is this going to pick me up on
I'm
both?
just soaking it up, dude.
Cool.
Oh, you're probably fine with it.
Yeah, cool.
So if you could play another role, would it have been Charles Vane, or?
I mean, it is tough, because you can't go after Zach McGowan doing Charles Vane, because he is Charles Vane now. It would be interesting, I wonder what my Vane would have been like, but I don't know who else. Everyone's so iconic now. I think once we left the station, all those roles became so tied to the actors that it's impossible to see anyone else there.
I would have liked to see you play Jack Rackham. How you would handle, like, a more flamboyant kind of character.
I've definitely done that in other things. So I reckon, because it was...
But don't get me wrong, Jack Rackham, I love him.
No, once again, you would never... I
wouldn't replace anyone, but I was curious how you would handle that kind of character.
I think it would have been very different, I think there's... Because once again, the choices that Toby made within that role are so iconic.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Rackham could have been many things. No one really knew. He's kind of introduced as slight pirate in the first episode. Like, you go and you find out it's Rackham, but it was one of those things where no one knew what that character was going to be. I think it was even there in the third episode, and one of the writers, like the producer, said to Toby, it was like, are you going to do... That's the voice you're going to do? It was like, I've been doing it for 3 episodes. Because there was so much to handle. They're building ships and doing these big things and all this stuff. And he was kind of on the outskirts for a while. That it was suddenly they started to went, what's he doing? This kind of, RAF pilot kind of, like, he's so kind of out of time and place with what he's doing. But it's so perfect. And it brings a levity and a different tone when you've got a lot of the other kind of macho stuff going on.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack Rackham is, as we see through the arc of the show, he becomes so important. And by the end of it, he's the audience in a lot of ways. He's the one amongst all the Treasure Island stuff's happening, and he's kind of this guy in the middle just trying to make it work.
Back to the moral compass. I mean, kind of like Jack Rackham.
Kind of the most sane character in some ways, I would say. Most reasonable,
Totally.
Yeah, I think, but once again, he goes to that whole arc where he's obsessed with his name, and he kind of has more pride than anyone else.
Yeah.
Where I think, Flint is very much doing it for what he thinks is right. This will make a better world. And Billy Bones is the same thing. He's working, his whole thing was working for his brothers and the team, where Rackham was more self-centered than anyone. Once he gets over that, which I think is going into the 4th season, he has that realization to work for something bigger and for something that means more, and that I think, once again, at that point, you're like, okay, he's the guy. Yeah, he's the guy that kind of makes the most sense right now, because everyone else is going bonkers.
Speaking of Billy Bones and Flint, I want to touch on transformations and characters' journeys in this show. You see it with Eleanor Guthrie kind of, always switching sides to serve her interests. You see it with Woodes Rogers becoming just a monster. And then you look at Long John Silver, who has kind of always been about self-preservation. And then Captain Flint, who has always been steadfast in his beliefs, and it's almost like Flint doesn't transform. Do you get that as well?
Well, in a way, his transformation happened before the show started, and we see that in season 2, which I think was it. Yeah, it was crazy bold storytelling to watch a season of a show without understanding a character's motivations, and then in the middle of season 2, you're like, oh my god, and suddenly your heart goes out to him. You're like, oh, this, and you're really rooting for him. Where before that, you're like, what's driving this guy? And I think there's still more of, I think, then in his relationships, there's a big there's a transformation that goes on from that. But that's kind of one of the reasons the show ends up where it does, and why I say Silver makes the choices he does, because he does recognize that there is no stopping him. Once Thomas was taken and Flint became Captain Flint, nothing could break that. And I think even in the last episode, you see Silver, after Silver's tried to kill him and they've hunted him down, and he's still like, no, we're going to get back together and make it happen.
God.
And you see Silver going like, this will never stop. Like his entire psyche is now about this thing, about burning down civilization and hoping that something better rises from the ashes. That he doesn't go on the same journey as everyone else because he's already so far in by the time he starts. And I think it's where the flashbacks serve him so well. That said, I don't know a better actor than Toby Stephens. And he was as much as he's always in that mode, everything he did was so surprising, and he got to show so many different facets of Flint across those 4 seasons.
Billy Bones, I keep thinking of, because he starts out so loyal.
Yeah.
He's
so loyal.
He's for the crew, It's like a brother in arms kind of thing, like that. Someone got your back.
Yeah. Always has their back, gets so angry at Hornigold and all that, and then at the end, he's just like, well, F this, I'm going with the British.
Well, I think it's like being heartbroken.
Yeah.
Like it's like if you're in a relationship and you don't care about it and someone breaks you, you're like, okay, fine, it doesn't change you. If you give everything to someone or to a group of people, like as he's doing, and he has done everything right, he was so loyal, turned on at that point, you're like, well, screw it. It so psychologically breaks him, I think. That after that point, you go, well, what is loyalty? He gave his loyalty and they turned on him, so loyalty means nothing.
I do want to talk about that scene when you basically choose Flint over him. What was that scene like? Because that look on your face when he's looking back at you... Yeah. That is one of the images that is now gonna stay with me for the rest of my life. I always
burned into your mind.
Burned into my mind. That moment was so intense.
Well, it's interesting as well, because Silver as that's the point. He's been slapped around. He has to play the part now, and I think it's there's that scene before where I go like, okay, go meet him, where Billy's putting the pressure on and going, we have to do it now, and I decide to do it. And acting's never been I just started. There's, and you kind of don't really see it because we're kind of in the darkness. But giving the nod to Tom at that point, to Billy Bones, going go do it, knowing in the back of my head I'm sending you. We're gonna turn on you now, and just it's great when you've had 4 years with people, because I didn't have to go okay, so Silver's been with Billy Bones through this stuff and now he's turning on him. I didn't have to look at Tom Hopper's face and go and know it's the last season. It's all, and this, brotherhood's about to tear apart. And you just go oh, it's heartbreaking. You're yeah, go do it, and I'm about to screw you over. And then at that point afterwards, Silver knows he can't show that anymore. In that moment, I think you see they're completely vulnerable with each other. Silver's lying to him, but they're still kind of open and there and present. And after that, it's like, now I'm the leader. And so, yeah, so I think there is that weird thing that he's got that front up from that point. He's like, I'm Long John Silver. I'm the leader of the revolution. I have to be, if I'm the king, I got to look like a king. And from that point onward, well, it's really only lasts a couple of episodes before Marty disappears and he falls apart again. But for those, what makes him for those couple of episodes the guy who can lead that next fight with Julius and all that stuff.
Pirate King.
Pirate King, man.
Do you watch One Piece, Luke Arnold?
Okay, I've watched the first few episodes. Because once again, it's so much to get into. There's too much of it there. Like, I've just... Yeah, I say what I did I was telling you guys the other night. Yeah, did the manga of Death Note and a bit of Berserk and going through that way. Trying to do a bit. There's just so much stuff out there.
Too much stuff.
Too much stuff.
Too much
but
stuff.
I'm familiar with Luffy and One Piece.
Excellent.
And a bunch of that. Yeah.
So there's transformations, and then I think another one of the huge themes of the show is trust and loyalty. With you look again, you go back to Eleanor, who just believes in something so much. Like, these characters believe in what they are doing, but they're kind of willing to take people out as they go along.
Yeah.
So, and then you look at a character like Rackham, who is just so loyal to Anne Bonny, and that's like a whole nother, level of loyalty.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the most loyal character?
It changes. Because it was Billy Bones at certain points. And you look, it depends to who. Billy Bone loyal to the crew. As you said, Rackham loyal to Anne Bonny. There's a point where Flint is loyal to Silver more than anyone. You know what I mean? That friendship and that bond is above everything else. So it changes for everyone. And I think it's funny going back to Eleanor. And I think this is the thing about the show and living in the grey area the way it does, is that it's like, you want Silver to just be like, in some shows, Silver would just become the Pirate King and be the new leader, and he'd just take on that role. And Eleanor would just be the badass, girl in charge of town who doesn't screw anything up. Yeah. But I think underneath most of these characters is fear. Like, for Eleanor, her mother was killed in the Spanish raid. So everything she's fighting for, the reason to be so ruthless, is she knows what happens if they don't make this legitimate. If they leave this place open and vulnerable and the way it is from the beginning of the show, then that happens again. That horror that she experienced when she was a child comes back. And that's all of those characters that have been... Everyone's had terrible stuff happen to them that define the way they act. Which is why you'd want characters in there who are just loyal and going to do the right thing, but they've all got incredible pain underneath that you realize at one point or another. Anne Bonny's a monster, but she's had monstrous things happen to her. And when you start hearing about that and what Jack rescued her from, it all becomes much more complex. Long answer. So the short answer, I really don't know. I actually don't, because it changes so much. Yeah. I don't think there's a perfectly loyal character.
That is what I love so much about Black Sails, is because everything is always shifting. Everyone has a good point.
Yep.
And it's like it's back to good versus evil, which I really don't think the show is, but so many other TV shows are. And which brings me to the finale, which was an emotional roller coaster on so many levels. And that scene with Long John Silver and Captain Flint in the jungle near the end, probably my favorite scene in the entire show. And you're going back and forth, and they're arguing about what each of them is fighting for, and you can't help but think you both are so right and you both are so wrong. Like,
it's, but I mean that is, I mean, that philosophy, they're both such strong, real philosophies, and the stuff, I know, the kind of things that I have within me and within my head, looking at the world today, the world ever, these are the kind of arguments that rule that people have to make, but rulers especially have to make. You go, like, Flint is an idealist. He thinks that, like, we see in the political landscape out here recently, there seems to be a big push, people thinking that if the system is broken, if we break apart the system, we can make something better. And then you have people going, probably not. I think, like, the human beings are not that great. You break that down, it's anarchy, and we're going to eat ourselves alive. And and I don't know the answer to that, and I think that's what's going on there. Flint's an idealist, and Silver's a realist. And Silver, not having anything to lose, was ready to go along with Flint for a while, until a point where he goes, like, I think you're probably wrong, and for me, the cost is too high now. That I think... take the bit of Satan, and
But then part of me was like, you selfish person. Like,
I know.
As soon as he gets a wife in mind, he's like, forget everything, man.
No, completely. Once again, you go like, he's ending the show. Like, but that's amazing to watch, that you see people who, like, I thought everyone's going to hate me after this, because, but some people see it. Some people are like, you're so right. That
of course. And
Flint
I felt
is
with
an
you too.
agent
I was
of
like,
chaos.
Yeah.
And he in his head, he's fighting for the right thing, but what all we've seen in these 4 seasons, the destruction and the death and everything, this is all around what he's been trying to do. You'd love to think that they get their way and they take over and bring freedom to everyone, and this utopia happens, But who knows? I mean, we still haven't seen it. This revolution never happened, and it's still something that's being argued about at the moment, of going, like, if we have safety in a system of society and of government, if we destroyed that and found, would there be anything better, or is the life we have the best we've got with all its problems? And which is so great to end a show that way, and to have these two things held up, and to not really know who is right here. Once again, it's not
absolutely
good versus evil at the end. It's two philosophies that can't exist together.
Poetic.
Beautiful. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd say John Steinberg and Robert Levine and Dan Schatz and the entire writing team.
Unreal.
I mean, as an actor, you never get this kind of stuff. Where do you go? Okay, it's the last episode, and we do. There's some big, we got the explosions and the fight and every, up in the rigging,
fight.
amazing
Great
stuff.
fight scene.
But we're gonna spend 15 minutes of the last episode, 2 guys just talking to each other in the woods. That's mental. To go like, and you walk out to do it that day, and you're like, well, if this sucks, the whole show's for nothing. Like, you realize the whole show's been building to that
best
moment.
Scene, dude, the best. What was your favorite scene? The whole show.
Oh, no. Oh, I actually think doing that scene was probably it's all the stuff with Flint, because I think back to the whole shark. Doing the shark stuff was pretty mental. I don't know if it's actually fun to do, because I hadn't eaten in weeks. We were just, I lost a bunch of weight for that episode, and so it was just not eating and then being out in the sun in that rowboat fighting a big rubber shark. It was pretty hilarious. Yeah. So all that episode was pretty wild, because once again, not stuff you usually get to go on do on TV. And you're like, okay, it's just a whole thing. I think for an hour, you guys are stuck at sea with no food, going crazy.
Yep.
Wondering, are you all going to kill each other? And it's just some really intense stuff that is so different to what anyone's ever done on TV before. But yeah. So I don't know, but I think that last episode in the woods, it's tough to beat, really. That experience of just going, here we go, me and Toby Stevens just talking
laying
about everything that's happened in this show. It was really satisfying. Yeah.
A couple more questions.
Cool.
Just about getting there. How much of the book affected your perception and your performance of Long John Silver, and did you know where the show was going to end?
We didn't know exactly. Going in, didn't know where it was going to end. Knew it probably would be like a 4 or 5 season thing. It was definitely a show that was trying to get to the end. Not just leave it open ended and see what adventures happen. It was going to have a specific thematical point, I'd say, in the writers' heads. For me, the joy was reading Treasure Island, thinking about the places I could take it, and forgetting it as we went. So that it, and so when it begins and people are like, this guy's Long John Silver? You want to start with that, if by the end you're going to go, that's him, you know, and you see, once again, we're not at the book by the end, but I think you can see the lines drawn between how this guy becomes the guy that we know in the book. And it's almost more, he's more Jim Hawkins at the beginning. And I think that's something in the book that Silver's always saying, hey, Jim, you remind me of me when I was your age.
Yeah, totally.
And and so I think there's that thing that, you know, you can, Treasure Island now, you read it and you can imagine, like, that Silver, a couple of decades later, put on a bit of weight. He gave it all up. You know, this like, Jim's so excited about pirates and buried treasure, and Silver's a guy who was like, I was there, I did it, I ended it. You know, and now trying to go back and get that piece of adventure again. So I think the writer's done great things about infusing the book with things that weren't there before, if you've watched the show. But yeah, you have to go off the script. And I think it was that thing of understanding what's there in the book and some places we could go, but also completely just going, here's the guy written in this episode, play that, and trust that we can evolve him to the Long John Silver we know from the book over time.
The crucial scene for Long John Silver when he gets his name in the tavern.
Yeah.
Walk me through this. So, was that, like, were you nervous for this? Because, like, you got to deliver that line, baby. That is, like, the line.
It was tough because you go, like, the whole night. Maybe 2 nights is me walking into the tavern and doing 2 big monologues. And it's that weird thing because you can't play power and you can't play intimidation. It has to be endowed on you. You know, it's just one of those things. You can't come in and, you know, put your chest out. It's not that. Everyone else has to endow you with this power. But also it's knowing at the time Silver doesn't see himself as being scary or powerful. He's a messenger. Flint is the scary, powerful guy in the shadows. So he's just coming in to tell a story. And so it was once again trying to get it out my head of going, don't try and be intimidating it's just like, come in, deliver the message, and then this thing happens. Dufresne rises up and he has to throw down, you know, and it's in the moment. God. It was pretty wild. So it was a lot long, and then getting to that moment of the line. Because it's once again, we do the speeches and you spend all this time on this, and then we bring the dummy out and we're cracking the head and I'm doing it.
God, yeah. I remember specifically talking to you about that.
Yeah.
Many times.
It was pretty wild. And then you've got Ben. There's a guy, Ben, who he was like my double who's missing the bottom half of his left leg. So he'd step for a lot of things from behind or things where the leg was featured. He'd step in and be Silver. So he's doing it. So you go through all this stuff and then suddenly it's like, okay, it's the end of the night. Now's time for the line. You know, and you're like, and they're flicking blood on my face to get the, the thing here. And it's like, did a couple of, you know, and you know, once again, it's hard to resist that urge to kind of push it.
Yeah.
And then I think there was the one that ended up using it, you know, it's like, take a minute, take a breath, delivered it. And you just see that silence and a cut. And there's that kind of, and everyone's just like, you know, we're going to like, okay, that one worked.
Mic drop.
Yeah, it was not, once again, because there you get these moments that if you don't do properly, you go, that's everything. Everything that happens to Silver after that point is because of that moment. If you don't believe it, it can be really hard. You know, it can happen sometimes in shows where you don't feel something, but then the exposition of the show builds it up later and you're like, oh, I guess I was meant to feel at this point that this happened. But it's nice if you can get the reaction at home of people going, he's a new guy now. Something shifted here in that moment. Yeah.
Did you know that was the reason for his name? Like, how was that? Like, when did you realize that they were going to do that? Or when did the showrunners know that?
Probably writing that script, I think.
Yeah,
there were lots of different ideas that we've been taught. Because the writers, once again, more than most shows, were so open to stuff. So often at the end of a season, I'd go, hey, here are the things I'm thinking for next season. And they'd kind of say what they're thinking back. And when I come to LA, we'd sit in the office and they'd talk through kind of ideas and things. So they were always really open. And I was, with the long thing, we're throwing some different ideas out there. Just like, that we were tossing, and then this came out. It was like, that's perfect. It's just,
it made so much sense.
Yeah. It and especially because making this kind of boogeyman, this idea that now, you know, you betray the pirate cause, Long John Silver will come get you, you know, and he never forgets. But at some point, which is where we begin Treasure Island, you know, Billy hiding because you betray them, he's still going to come out and get you. So, it was great. Really, they couldn't have, because there was lots of ways that could have been really on the nose, and I'm glad it wasn't.
That pretty much does it. Unless, Brad, do you have any?
What was the last day of shooting like for you guys?
Ooh, great question.
So by the end of the last season, we were all exhausted and in pain.
Yeah.
It was like
Emotional, physical, both.
yeah, too much. Like usually it's that thing where you end a job. That's kind of how most jobs end.
Yeah,
but
sure.
This was 4 years, and you look at 409. Just for the last 2 episodes, how much fighting Toby Stevens had to do in those, and he's a fit guy, but that's tough for anyone.
Sure,
to do.
yeah.
It was brutal. So we have such a family, and it's so kind of bittersweet that the show's ending. And those last weeks, you're trying to be like, okay, you want to take in every moment and absorb it all because this is the last time you're going to do this. And at the same time, it's like, no, just get me out of here. It's like you're kind of going,
sure,
is this it? And everyone's been away from their families and their friends, been down there in the trenches. So it's heartbreaking for it to end. And especially now, like then when you go back and watch it, you get to the moment of going, oh, now I really miss it.
Yeah.
But we were all you're counting down the things to get out of there because it was brutal because we ended on just fight scene after fight scene. And then you go, okay, we're going to go back to episode 1 and you're going to be in the water again, picking that up, or you're going to be doing this moment here. And we're just in pieces, and you're between the physio and the doctor and the stunt room and set.
Dude, that swim scene in the first episode. Oh my god, I loved that.
That was mad. Like I saw the last Mission Impossible film.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to another director friend, and I said, if I had to do that, I'd probably turn the job down because I have such a phobia of doing that. And a week later, I go into the writer's room, and they're like, we have a fantastic idea. You're going to get dragged to the bottom of the bay and escape. I was like, this is my nightmare. So I was like, okay, you're going to pay for me to get my scuba certificate now. I went back to Australia, and I got my scuba certificate, spent heaps of time underwater. And then what I do, where I was staying in Cape Town, I was like, I want a place with a plunge pool at the back. So I'd just go, I'd just set a timer, and I'd get some kettlebells, and I just sit at the bottom of the pool, and I got to like 2 minutes being able to just kind of sit there underwater on my own.
Wow.
When you start moving, it eats up oxygen much quicker. But I just was like training my breath hold every day. And we'd have a great like the Frog Squad, who are the underwater team, were fantastic. The stunt team were amazing. But it's just psychologically, like when you're doing scuba stuff, you go, okay, I'm checking all my things, so I know I'm fine. When you're doing those stunts, you're dragged underwater with a hose that goes off to nowhere that you hope someone's monitoring how much air's left. And you're kind of left underwater while they set the camera and everything up. And then you have to throw that away and act or like swim through the stuff, like get through some maze of debris and everything. And hope that and you can't see because you're not wearing goggles or anything. And hope that when you do this, someone swims out of the darkness and brings air. And just trusting psychologically to go as long as you can, knowing that, you're 6 meters underwater, or where you're inside a set underwater. There's no way to kind of save yourself. If things go bad.
Crazy.
So it was all fine and it was great, and there were like some scary moments, but always was completely looked after by everyone. And so happy with the results. I mean, it's an amazing sequence to have been able to do. Once again, for television.
Blown away by that scene. Because there's like no words for a long time. To elaborate on Brad, just how you felt during the finale. Does that feeling begin for the final season? I've always wondered that, like watching a show for the final season, like
everyone knows it's the end.
Yeah, is the set like that for the entire the entire final season, or like just maybe like the last 1 or 2? You realize, this is kind of the end of the line.
No, I think we didn't know at the beginning it was going to be the last season.
Oh, okay.
They thought it very likely could be, and very quickly, because they had a bit of an arc for the season, and then as we got through those first few episodes, and it's funny. More than anyone, it felt like the characters wanted it to end. Everyone's talking about what happens after this. This is the last battle. This is the moment. And it was just like, I think it's just naturally the story's coming to a close. And so the writer started putting it out there, and maybe about halfway through it was like, we're going to wrap things up. So it was nice to have that time. I can't imagine what it would have been if we'd, you finish it and then you get cancelled between seasons, which is the fate of most shows. And that's got it. Like to get that call and you're just sitting at home away from everyone, you're like, you're not going back.
Yeah.
So, so we were really lucky to have that time to digest it and work through it. And obviously a lot of characters died throughout the year, like, throughout the season. Yeah. So you got to say goodbye to certain people as it went along. And it meant that because is the best job ever with the best people, but you still, you still go like, I'm exhausted, and you're going crazy and go, oh, I'm missing things back home and all this. So even more, but we were always good at appreciating the job. I think even more so when it's the last season, we really made the most of it. And, because, you get absorbed in the work. And I think in the last season, spent a lot more time kind of getting out of town with the cast and like on the weekends, I was like, hire beach houses and we go and spend time because you're like, hey, this is it. This is the last hurrah.
Yeah.
So let's make some memories while we're there. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to say what I love about the show. Then, Brad, you're going to do it. And
I got one last question though, real quick.
Cool.
So, a lot of great props on this show. A lot of beautiful craftsmanship. Did you get to keep anything?
Ooh.
So what I got actually, and it was a strange one because I don't really live anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not like a collector who like
Sure,
collects
yeah.
so much stuff.
The peg leg. Did you get to
I didn't get to keep the peg leg.
You did or did
No,
not?
I didn't.
Oh,
No. I think that went on eBay because it was selling our costumes recently. Like all this stuff. So I think it went there.
I was hoping you'd keep the coat, man.
That would have been good. But once again, it's funny. I've kept clothes from things before.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're really tough to know what to do with. Like little mementos you can put on the shelf. I'm like, all right, the clothes just end, like I have boxes at home. Of
Yeah,
like,
I guess you don't have like a display area
Yeah,
in your house or anything like that.
But what I did get during the 4th season, there's that scene where Billy brings me into Eleanor's office to talk about Max. He's like, let's have a few minutes. And I was in there and I looked on her desk and there was a piece of paper. And it was the instructions for where to find the Urca de Lima that I wrote in season 1. Episode 3, season 1 was actually the first scene we shot. Was that scene of... And for anyone who ever shoots any TV or film or anything, never start a show with a 7-hander in a room because it just takes all day and everyone loses it. Like that's how we began. Was me writing and Billy getting angry and Flint, and it takes all day and you're just doing the same thing. So it was like mind numbing. But that's what it began with me writing that out, and that bit of paper was there on her desk. So Nina Jack was one of our producers. She was like, give it to me, and I got it back in the framed thing. So, so it was like the first thing I ever did on the show.
Oh, very cool.
So that was really good. And that's
Very
perfect.
cool,
You're supposed
very
to
cool.
put that on the wall, and that's like, that kind of whole journey's kind of in there. Yeah. They kind of handed me they were going to hand me the crutch at the end of it, and I was like, I do not want to see that
Anymore, yeah.
I was like, I get chills up my broken spine. So, I've probably got other little things, but no, really, that was my main memento.
It's a good one, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, just to wrap it up, 2 things really stand out, and to me, it's the best of both worlds, which is why I love this show so much. One is the action, just next level, unbelievable, like lack of CGI, like you're on the ship.
Yeah.
Things are exploding. The intimacy of all the hand-to-hand combat and the sword fighting, you really feel every blow. And you really care for the people on the other end of the sword, whether it's a random person coming up getting killed that you've never even seen before. It just, everything has impact. And the characters. Some of the best written, most realized, full-bodied characters I have ever watched on television, and we've touched on this so much, just the complexity of all of them, and they all make sense, and you root for them all in a certain way, and it's beautiful. So that's.
I mean, you know me, Mike. I don't really watch TV like at all, really, and I think I maybe watched 2 shows in like the past couple years, and Black Sails has been on the radar the whole time. Yeah, it's a really fascinating time period to me and everything. Great depth and all the characters. Really loved it. But man, I just want to thank you for the entertainment over these like 4 years, man. It's been crazy.
It was a gift for me to be like. It was just the best job I could have imagined.
Yeah.
And I love. I'm such a fan of the show. Like being on the once again, like, all those things you appreciate. Like it was the same every day. Seeing the craftsmanship of the ships.
Yep.
And just being on something when everyone worked as hard as they could from the beginning to the end, which isn't always a thing in television. It becomes a job. So I was just stoked that you guys, watched the show and loved it, and it was great. And then when you said you were going to do this today, I was like, hell yeah, I'll jump on.
Gotta get him. Gotta get him, dude. Yeah.
So I got one final question. What has Long John Silver taught you?
Ooh. That if you that if you ever injure your leg and you're put on crutches, use 2,
Yep.
not 1.
Always used to.
Yeah. It's
Like such a badass one.
Yeah. It did. It
But you
looked
just
great.
see
It
you
felt
like
terrible.
hobbling, and you're like, you know, this is killing him.
Yeah. But so that was a big one that I definitely learnt physically. But no, I think it's hard to say because he's such a confusing character when you think of all the different pieces. But probably that I think there's something it's in a great Bukowski poem as well. But like who says like invent yourself and reinvent yourself. That I think the great thing about Silver was that he redefined who he was as so many times. And if you commit to it, people will go with you. And so I think it was great, both as an actor, being able to every season go, forget who he was before, who is he now?
Mm-hmm.
And people will go with you. Like watching the show, no one, at no point do you go like, I don't think Silver would do that. You know,
You're right,
like,
yeah.
he's that guy now.
Never thought something
He's
like
a
that.
whole other character. And I think both in sometimes actors get scared of stepping outside you know the role, going like, well, my character wouldn't do that. It's kind of like they are now, and go with it, and the audience will go with you. And I think in life that we have the ability to change like that. That you can go, I'm this guy today, and if you actually go there and do it, people will go like, great, cool, follow you anywhere. So yeah, I think being a bit more fearless with stepping outside who I thought I was before.
Awesome.
Bowie style.
Exactly.
Well
style.
said, Brad.
Bowie. Yeah. Long John Silver, Bowie style.
Yeah.
That is gonna do it. Absolute pleasure, an honor, and a privilege having you here, Luke. It's unbelievable. Thank you for the show. Black Sails. If somehow you watch this entire thing and you haven't watched an episode of Black Sails, I hope you do so now. You will not be disappointed. So,
Thanks for having me. That was great. Cheers, man.
love and respect.